What's up, people? Huh. So now that I've done my No Way Home review, I've done a review of every live-action Spider-Man movie. So I decided to do a tier list on all of them, and I even included the two Venom movies and Into the Spider-Verse, which I will eventually get to Into the Spider-Verse, but I want to wait till Across the Spider-Verse comes out. So yeah, yeah. And Spider-Man's a really cool hero. We all love him. Like, I think he's Stan Lee's favorite character as well. So he's had so many movies. It's crazy. And two of them have a crossover with other Spider-Mans. So it's time to rank them all according to my opinion, of course. You can feel free to completely disagree. But, film is subjective anyway. So let's get this over with. And no other preamble. So to start off, we will get into the original movie from 2002, and I would put this in great. Hey, just right away. This really did set the stone for a lot of comic book movies afterward on how you can do really cool character-driven stories, but in cool fight scenes too. I would say it takes the campiness of the Richard Donner Superman movies and makes it a little more kid friendly, but also adds a little more violence. And the characters are really cool. Peter's character is so well developed. Tobey Maguire is great, and the origin is super well made. Like, it really gives you the idea that anybody could become this character, this superhero. The way he gets to Spider-Man, like after Ben dies and then he suddenly has a suit on, is a little fast, but doesn't not too bothersome. And then, yeah, Green Goblin, played by Willem Dafoe, is awesome, and the fight scenes are pretty decent, even though a lot of the CGI really doesn't hold up. It's still pretty good, and and the fight scene that Peter has at the end with the Goblin is, I've seen Logan, but somehow this is like that level of violent. It's pretty crazy. And yeah, it's just if I had a complaint, it'd be that it is kind of dated. Like, you can tell this came out in the early 2000s, and like, you mess with you mess with one person, you mess with New York, that whole thing. It's like, yeah, this did come out after 9/11, didn't but oh well, it's still a pretty darn good movie and worth being in the great tier for me. Moving on to the sequel, Spider-Man 2, and yep, S tier, just immediate. Like, this takes the campiness from the first film and the characters and all that and takes it to the next level. This does what a lot of good sequels should do, where it should continue the story, not just do the same thing all over again. And I would say, out of all the Spider-Man films, that Spider-Man 2 does Peter Parker's character story arc just the best way. And, he starts off as this character who is struggling to figure out how to live his life as Peter Parker and Spider-Man. He gets crapped on for becoming Spider-Man, and he just cracks and throws the suit away before eventually he realizes, no, the city still needs him. And so well executed, and it's just really, really good. And the train scene, we all love that scene. It's just really awesome. And Alfred Molina's Doc Ock is also great, even has a redemption at the end. So yeah, it's just really, really, really good. Until No Way Home came out, this was my favorite Spider-Man movie, and just I want to watch it again. So we then move on to Spider-Man 3, and I'll admit the review I did on it was a little more negative than I wanted it to be. I originally said it was bad, but I don't know, the more I think about it, I would put it in the decent tier. Like, yeah, I understand the hate this movie does get, where there is way too much going on. You got three villains in one movie, and the way the movie switches, no, this is the villain, no, this is the villain, no, this is the villain, is always jarring, and it's amazing how many times a villain would show up and then disappear and then show up again, like how I would just forget they were in the movie. But it is still like Sam Raimi's passion for it is still there. Like, Peter's story isn't great, but it does do a decent job concluding his story, like, as a trilogy of movies. And um, Harry, I like, even if the whole amnesia thing was weird. But I mean, I did feel when he helped Peter fight and died at the end. And Sandman is okay. It's just that the way they forced his connection to Peter Parker, I wasn't a fan of. Venom, and just I don't care. I didn't care for him. So, like, it's almost good, but it's not quite there. Just because, again, the pacing is ridiculous because of this obvious studio interference that was going on. So it's decent. And I'll admit it was better the more I thought about it, but I mean, I'll still rewatch it whenever I watch the first two movies. But yeah. Moving on to the Mark Webb rebooted movies, starting with, of course, The Amazing Spider-Man, and it is better than 3, where it's a decent movie, but the thing about this one, like, I'll admit when I rewatched it, I enjoyed it so much better. The first time I watched it, I was like, oh, it's another Spider-Man movie. The second time, I really liked it, but there was something missing. And apparently, eh, there was a lot cut from this movie. There were all deleted scenes that would have fleshed things out, and which is why you do kind of get the feeling that it's good, but there's something Well, it's not good because there's something missing from it being a good movie. Just Andrew Garfield, I think, is a good Spider-Man. It's just that his Peter Parker is a little too cool, and relation with Gwen Stacy's all right, and Lizard is and I don't know. It's an interesting film. It's decent. But yeah, there is something holding it back from being good. Then we got The Amazing Spider-Man 2, which, believe it or not, is the only Spider-Man film I would say is bad. Just, oh, Spider-Man 3 has pseudo interference, and that's what made it not good. Let's do that again, but worse. Let's literally have the purpose of this film be to set up future movies. And it is so obvious when you have that in mind. Just, I don't know. I watched Film Speaks video about it where he said it's his favorite Spider-Man movie, and I don't know, just like, it's clear what this was trying to do. Like, I respect the layers and like the character development and all that, but the way the movie is paced is cut down so much, and that I don't really feel the emotions I'm supposed to be feeling. Like, Gwen's death, like, I mean, I guess I felt when she died, but I wasn't like crying. There was just something missing, and I couldn't figure out what it is. It's the same problem with the first one, where there's something missing, but it's worse to the point where there's nothing enjoyable about it. Like, it is so obvious this is trying to set up future movies that I'm just like, oh, so why should I care about the one I'm watching now if what you care about is future movies? So, like, Electro, I didn't like. Harry, I didn't like any of the villains. Just I don't like it. Just it's bad. Not much else to say. Hey, and then we got Spider-Man: Homecoming. So now he's in the MCU, played by Tom Holland, and I would put this in good. I really liked Homecoming. A lot of people don't like it, say that's too connected to the MCU, and I'm like, that's fair, but I still really like it. I would say Tom Holland is my favorite Spider-Man. I got like some like context from this YouTuber I like, who's a huge Spider-Man fan. He says Tom Holland is the best one. So if he's like a huge Spider-Man fan, it's like, oh, so he's the most comic book accurate then. So I feel confident saying that. And Homecoming did a good job, like showing Peter Parker as somebody who looks up to the Avengers but has to become his own person. Like it skipped the origin, which I'm glad about. And yeah, just I like this movie, even though I do understand that it's maybe too connected to the MCU. And also Michael Keaton's Vulture is pretty darn awesome. Just it's Michael Keaton, you can never go wrong with him. And yeah, it's good. And then we have Venom, and you kind of probably figured that out what I think about this movie from the beginning, but I don't care for this. Strangely, a lot of people love this movie, and I'm just like, I don't get it. I kind of get it. It's an enjoyable movie when I'm watching it. Like Tom Hardy is a lot of fun. Like, and the fight and action scene he has on the motorcycle where Venom's helping him, that is fun, but it is nowhere near a good movie. I don't know. I just found it really forgettable. Like I can barely remember what the story is and what the villain was about. Like I remember the villain had a motivation very similar to Thanos, but but it wasn't as impactful as Thanos. And I don't know, not much else to say. I just really didn't care for this movie. Hey, and then we got Into the Spider-Verse, which is an S tier for me. Hey, this man, I said I'm gonna do a whole video on it later before the next movie comes out, but I'll say it now, it's freaking fantastic. I did not expect it to be so good. Just like it's really good. Like I heard Miles Morales was a really annoying character in the comics, but they say that this movie actually made him likable, and I would have to agree. He's super likable, and he has similar thing with Peter Parker, where he's a relatable kid, but he's also somewhat of his own person, and not just a black Peter Parker. And it's cool seeing other Peter Parkers and other Gwen Stacy's in here. It was made by Phil Lord and Chris Miller, and they did Lego Movie, and man, their writing in here shows. It's like they really know what they're doing. Honestly, watching it made me go, man, I kind of wish they directed the Solo a Star Wars story, because that movie was directed by them. They could have done something really cool, but then they got fired and ended up turning out to be a really generic film that I just don't care for. But at least they stayed for Into the Spider-Verse, because it was so worth their work on it. Just really darn good. And then we have Far From Home, which is one of the more underrated MCU movies, I think. I think it's slightly better than Homecoming. Just like it does distance itself a little more from the MCU, where Tony Stark is dead and he learns he has to become his own person again. And like that's the thing I love about the Home Spider-Man trilogy. Just he matures more and more into his own person, and him like away from looking up to the Avengers. Like that's what I love about it. And Quentin Beck slash Mysterio is awesome. That the fight scene he has with him with with the all the illusions is really darn cool. And just yeah, it's really good. I wouldn't say it's up there with these three, but it's good. Good. And yeah, I thought I had something else there, but and I also think the romance between Tom Holland and Zendaya is actually really cute. I actually think it's better than, well, I don't know if I want to say better than Andrew Garfield and Emma Stone, but they're both really good for me. I actually have to think about which one's better. So then we have Venom Let There Be Carnage. And I only watched this movie because of its connection to No Way Home in the credits scene. But very similar to the first Venom, I did not care for it at all. Well, it's also a ridiculously short movie, only an hour and a half long, and it definitely feels that short. Or it just like so much happens in here, and then like they don't like I don't know, there's this whole thing where Eddie and Venom separate, like Venom goes on his own thing, and then they end up coming back together. Like it's not developed well enough for me to care when they get back together. And Woody Harrelson was okay as Carnage, but I don't know, Carnage just wasn't that impressive to me. I don't know, just yeah, there's just something about Let It Be Carnage that just didn't click for me. Like both Venom movies have the issue where they kind of feel like Sony movies, not directorial made movies, where they kind of feel like they were just made for the sake of being made. And I felt that even more with Let There Be Carnage. Like it felt like it was made just to tease him being in No Way Home. But oh well, just I just didn't care for them. But finally, we have Spider-Man No Way Home. I already did an over 30-minute video on it, so you can watch that. But No Way Home is definitely my new favorite Spider-Man film. It's the most satisfying movie I've seen in a while. Just seeing all of these characters, all these movies come together, and it somehow works, even though the way 3 ended and the way TASM 2 ended were not intended to go into No Way Home, but it works. Toby's Peter, like he's a mentor kind of character. Andrew's Peter, you actually see him get a resolution to him losing Gwen. And Tom's Peter, he finally becomes Spider-Man. Like he becomes the hero we all wanted him to be. And honestly, the saddest thing about it is that Stan Lee wasn't alive to see it. But yeah, oh, and also the villains coming together is really darn cool too. Willem Dafoe is great, and Doc Ock is good, and Electro was even better. So yeah, just it's really good. Just again, I already did a over 30-minute video on it. I'm not gonna. I don't really ain't much else to say. It's just really really good. One of my favorite MCU movies as well. So yeah, that's my thoughts on the Spider-Man movies. I guess I didn't even realize I haven't really elaborated on them that much since I did a video on almost all of them. But oh well, if you were wondering like how I would rank them, it would be like this. So yeah, that's about it. I believe that's my Spider-Man movie tier list. So we have Morbius coming and Across the Spider-Verse Part 1 coming this year, and excited for Across Spider-Verse. And similar to Venom, I'm only watching Morbius just to see its connection to the MCU. So that's about it. Peace!